My Little Nightmares, a collection of short horror stories. Episode 2, Faces in the Wall. Emma thought Japan was just another stop on her travels, until the walls of her hostel started smiling back. Emma found the hostel by accident. Tokyo was draining her wallet fast, and after weeks of travelling on a shoestring, she was desperate for somewhere cheap to stay. Down a narrow alley at Yuno, she spotted a faded wooden sign. The katakana spelled out Kikayu Ryokan, which translates to the Wall Inn. The windows were yellowed, paper screens warped with age, but the price was half what she'd seen anywhere else. The woman at the desk barely looked at her as she slid the register forward. Her eyes lingered, not on Emma, but on the wall beside them, as if someone was standing there. The room was tiny. Tatami mats, a futon, pale wallpaper streaked with moisture. A stain above the bed seemed like a face, wide eyes, a thin mouth. Not clear, just the kind of thing your brain imagines when you stare too long. She dropped her bag and laughed nervously. Nothing to worry about. That night, she couldn't sleep. Every creak of the building echoed through the paper-thin walls. Faint scratching came from behind the plaster. Mice, it's just mice, she thought, until she heard a voice. It wasn't words, just a low murmur, like someone speaking through a wall in another room. She pressed her ear to the wallpaper. It felt warm. The stain above Emma's bed seemed darker now, the face more defined. Eyes were deeper, shadow pooling where plaster had warped. She turned off the lamp, pulled the blanket tight, and shut her eyes. In the morning, she asked the clerk if anyone had been in the room next to hers. She said empty. Another guest, a man from Osaka, overheard and leaned closer. His voice hushed. "You should leave this place," he whispered. "The walls here, they watch." That evening she returned to her room and noticed something that made her stomach drop. The stain above the futon had changed. The face wasn't looking forward anymore. It was turned, looking towards her. On the second night, the hostel felt emptier. She hadn't seen the Osaka man again. His room door was wide open, bed and maid. She asked the desk clerk, but she ignored her, eyes locked on the ceiling, as if something crawled above them. She tried to not look at the stain, but when the lamp flickered, it seemed to blink. Scratching grew louder behind the walls, some dragging through the hollow space. Then a hand pressed through the wallpaper, black fingers curling outward, leaving damp smears. She scrambled back, heart hammering. When she blinked, it was gone, and the stain remained, spreading like mold. She barely slept that night. Third night was the worst. After midnight, the power went out. Emergency lights cast a faint red glow, and every shadow seemed alive. She was packed, ready to leave, when she heard footsteps. But not in the hall, in the walls. The wallpaper rippled, faces appeared, blurred and whispering. Some she didn't know, others she did. The Ahsoka man, the woman at the desk, and then she saw herself, pale, trembling, lips moving soundlessly. The wallpaper bulged. Something was pushing out from behind it, first a hand, then a head, pulling free with a wet, tearing sound. It was thin, elongated, its skin mottled, with stains and cracks, like plaster given life. Its eyes were too wide, too dark. Its mouth hung slack until it split into a grin. It stepped into the room, dragging itself free off the wall like a shadow peeling loose. Its body bent wrong, limbs too long, joints stiff as if it had never walked before. She backed into the corner, but the thing only tilted its head. Behind it, the wall continued to writhe. More figures pressed forward, their outlines bulging the paper, their whispers overlapping in a chorus of desperate voices. One of them had Emma's voice. Emma ran. Through the halls, down the stairs, the blurred faces of the previous victims staring at her behind desperately. Past the desk where the clerk sat motionless, eyes wide and glassy as the walls behind her rippled with faces. She didn't look back until she burst into the street. The dawn light stung her eyes, people passed by without a glance, the city alive and normal, as if nothing had happened. She never went back. Emma told herself it had been a dream, a hallucination brought on by exhaustion. But sometimes when she closes her eyes, she can still see the faces in the walls, watching, waiting. And last week, in her apartment in London, she noticed something on the ceiling. A stain. It looked almost like a face. Almost.